from when I was much younger. My older sister would always tell me that she's been haunted from a young age, for as long as she could remember. Now, I was an easily frightened child, so I was already scared from the numerous stories she had to tell me. But what I've experienced staying at her place still haunts me. It's not like one major event, but it's the build-up of multiple occurrences. To start off, there was a red flag that immediately caught my attention. Whenever I entered her home, for the first couple of times, for my first couple of visits, I would notice she would get more and more religious decor, and pieces placed around the house. Photos of Jesus, crosses, and that kind of stuff, you know? She had a Bible in practically every room, and when I asked her why, her first response was, "So he leaves me alone." At this point, I thought she was messing with me, or just trying to rile me up, knowing what pushed my buttons. But she had this level of intensity in her voice that I couldn't even begin to try and recreate, like she wasn't messing around. In all honesty, it shook me to my core. Because of this, even though I'm not even a religious person, I would sleep with a Bible under my pillow every night when I stayed at her place. She practically forced me to anyways. Fast forward a couple of years, I didn't stay over, and for good reason. But now she had gotten a guard dog, so I figured all was well. The dog was no pushover. He was a large and quite beefy German Shepherd. In fact, he was part of the canine unit, as my sister's ex-boyfriend was a police officer, so I knew this dog wasn't afraid of much. Now, I am over one night dog-sitting for her, as she was out of state for a week. And although I was very uncomfortable because of my experiences in the house, I thought I would throw my sister a bone and cover it for her. That turned out to be one of the first mistakes I could have made. The dog and I were sitting on the couch, watching the TV in the living room. Where I was sitting, you could see the far end of the hallway. That same hallway had multiple doors on both sides, but I hated having them open, so I closed them all before I did anything. Even though I should have felt somewhat safer, I just didn't. I would sit on the couch, just petting the dog, trying to calm myself, but I would get an overwhelming sense of danger, as if I shouldn't be in the house under any circumstance. The hallway had no light on, and I was getting the feeling that I was being watched. I figured it was my mind, just giving me excuses to be afraid, but I felt like something was preying on me, waiting for me to make a wrong move. Out of nowhere, the dog jumps off of the couch and immediately goes full attack mode, pointing towards the hallway, looking straight down it. The dog was going so ballistic, he was practically foaming at the mouth, barking and growling and snarling into the dark, obviously looking at something that I couldn't see. But out of nowhere, he just went quiet and just stared, as if whatever he was looking at was gone. Then I was hit with one of the worst feelings that I'm sure others have experienced as well. You know, that feeling of intense anticipation. The room is still, it's completely quiet, and you're just waiting for something to happen. That's what I was doing. I felt the hairs on my arms and neck stand up, and I just stone-faced stared into the dark, not wanting to look away, fearing that as soon as I did, it would all be over. My whole body tingled with anticipation, and it felt like the longest 10 seconds of my life. As I sat in silence, the door at the end of the hall slowly creaked, not like the door was being opened, but like someone was slightly pushing their weight on it. But this happened multiple times in a short time frame, within the span of another 5 seconds. Because it was so quiet, the noise stood out to me and made it all the more intense. Normally, I would have brushed it off as the wind or the house being generally unstable, but the dog made it a dead giveaway that something wasn't right. The next encounter was much more brief, but it happened the very next day. After that moment at night, I kept all lights on throughout and refused to turn them off. I also didn't want to sleep or lay in the living room anymore, because to be frank, I was terrified. At this point in time, it was probably dusk, maybe around 6 p.m, so it wasn't too dark around the house where the lights weren't on. Because of this, I figured it was no big deal. The dog was trailing behind me, and I made my way into my sister's bedroom. I turned around halfway into the room because I realized I didn't hear the tapping of the dog's claws on the floor, meaning he had stopped following me. This fierce police dog showed fear that I have never seen present in another animal before. The dog stopped dead in its tracks where the door frame met the floor and refused to enter the room. He would sit there and whine and bark in my direction. As long as the lights were off, he would not step one paw into that room. In that moment, I was frozen with fear. There was something in that room with me, and I could immediately feel the danger I was in. I felt so uneasy, to the point I thought I was going to vomit. I went to walk towards the door to leave the room, and the door immediately slammed shut in my face. For a solid few seconds after the door slammed, I heard the heavy pitter-patter of bare feet running towards my direction from across the room where the bed's bathroom was. I didn't bother to look. I didn't want to. With tears welling in my eyes, I jumped for the doorknob, ripped the door open, picked up that big pup with all my might, and ran straight for the front door. I told my sister I'd continued the dog sitting at my house, and I refuse to step foot in that building ever again. It has been years since I've been to that house, and I'm never going back. Hello everyone, SinisterShaf here. This story was My Older Sister's House Harbours Something Evil by SnoopNasty. Thank you for letting me narrate your story. If you enjoyed this video, then please remember to like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Also, if you can, share this video with your friends. You can now also follow me on Facebook and Twitter Links are in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay sinister.